We're now going to find an unknown angle using the cosine rule. So again, we have a non-right angled triangle. The reason we treat it as a non-right angled triangle is because it doesn't mention anything about there being a right angle inside it. So if there's no mention of any right angle inside it, you're right to assume it's a non-right angled triangle. And we've got the corners labelled with capital letters A, B and C, and we appear to know three sides. So the first thing we do is label each corresponding side with the lowercase letter. So this side is opposite angle A, so we're going to call it small a. This side here is opposite angle B, so we'll call it small b. This side is opposite angle C, so we're going to call it small c. Now, the next thing we've got to ask ourselves is, are we using the sine rule or the cosine rule? Well, we're using the cosine rule because we know all three sides. Remember, you use the cosine rule when you know all three sides or you know two sides and the angle between them. And it's asking us to find the angle BAC. Do you notice the little hat here is above the A? That means we're asked to find the angle at A. So mark the angle that you're trying to find. Now, how do we start the cosine rule? We start the cosine rule with the lowercase letter that corresponds to the angle that we're trying to find. We want the angle at A, so we're going to start the cosine rule with small a. So we write out the cosine rule. So small a squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice the product of the other two sides multiplied by the cosine of the corresponding capital letter. So what happens now is we sub in all the information in the question. So A is 12. So we replace A with 12. Make sure you're using brackets when you're subbing a number in with a power. And that's equal to 8 all squared plus 6 all squared minus twice the product of the other two sides. So B is 8, again it goes in brackets, you're subbing in a number that has a coefficient. C is 6, again you're putting it in brackets, you're subbing in a number that has a coefficient, and then we're multiplying that by the cosine of capital A. Remember, we can't sub anything in for A because that's what we're trying to find. Now, this is a bit harder because what we're trying to find is not at the beginning of the formula here. So what we're going to have to do is rearrange this formula. Now, the important bit to recognize is that the unknown A is part of this term. So this term being minus 2 bracket 8 bracket 6 cos A. That is all one term. So I'm going to put a box around all of that term. So you'll notice that this term is negative. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to move this entire term over to the other side. Now, when we move this term to the other side, it's now going to be positive. So we're going to have 2 and then bracket 8 bracket 6 cos A, and that's going to be equal to, so we've got 8 squared plus 6 squared. Now we're going to move this 12 squared over to the other side, so we're going to change its sign, so it's going to become minus 12 all squared. So you see the way now the term that contains A is now positive. what we're going to do now is we're going to work out the numerical values here. So this is 2 multiplied by 8 multiplied by 6. So let's work that out. 2 times 8 times 6 is going to give us 96. So we've got 96 cos A. And then over on this side, we're going to type it into our calculator. 8 squared plus 6 squared minus 12 squared. So we've got 8 squared plus 6 squared subtract 12 squared. And that's going to give us minus 144. So we're now going to get cos A by itself. We're going to divide both sides by its coefficient. So we're going to get 96 cos A all over 96, and that's equal to negative 44 all over 96. So the 96's are going to cancel, and we're just going to be left with cos A. Now, remember, we're finding an angle, so we know what cos A is equal to. We just want to get A. So to get angle A, we take the inverse cosine of the other side. And again, we need to use the shift button on our calculator. So shift and then cosine, hit our fraction button, or hit negative and then hit our fraction button. 44 over 96, close brackets, make sure the bracket surrounds the entire fraction, and then hit equals, and that's going to give us 117.2796. And then finally we can round our answer. So answer, the angle BAC is equal to, so round it to 3SF, third significant figure is the 7, go to the digit after, which is less than 5, so we keep the 7 the same, so it's going to be 117 degrees, and that's to 3 significant figures. So that's how you find an angle using the cosine rule. So write out the appropriate version of the cosine rule. Remember, you start it with the lowercase letter that corresponds to the angle that you're trying to find. Sub in all the values, and then you'll notice that the term that contains the unknown angle is always negative. So put a box around that entire term and then shift it to the other side, and that will make it positive. And then shift all the squared terms to the other side. Then go to your calculator, evaluate all the numbers, divide both sides by the coefficient of cos A, or whatever the angle is, and then remember to take the inverse cosine of the other side, and then round your answer to 3 significant figures.